Okay, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. This is Sarah at carnivore.yogi on Instagram. And today I have a really good friend of mine. We're friends off of Instagram also, Katrina, and she's on Instagram as at keto Katrina. Is that right?
Yes, I think there's a dot in there too to separate them, but I don't know that it's necessary. I can't remember actually.
Okay. Yeah, I think there is a dot now that I think about it. So I wanted to bring Katrina onto my YouTube channel to talk with you guys and so she could share her experience. She has lost 200 pounds and she did that with keto. She's also a keto coach. She's now carnivore. And yeah, I just want to talk about that. She's, got some experience with perimenopause. She's also going to talk about lipedema, which is something that I had actually never even heard of or knew was like a thing until I connected with her. So I've been learning a ton about that. A lot of women have lipedema, don't necessarily know that they do. And so she's kind of become like an expert on it. So I definitely want to talk about all that. But if you want to just kind of jump right in there, tell people about yourself, your weight loss journey, getting to carnivore, and then we'll just kind of take it from there.
Sounds good. So, hi everyone. My name is Katrina Harris, and I live in the suburbs of Atlanta, which is how I discovered quite by accident that Sarah was in the same area. And so I even went to her yoga classes.
Yeah.
So that's how the two of us have met, through Instagram and then yoga. But I have been keto for 5.5 years and have been keto carnivore for about 7 months. I have lost 200 pounds. I did that probably my first 18 months of keto and have pretty much stayed there the rest of the time, although there was definite some perimenopause weight gain. And my foray into carnivore was more of a, I don't know, I'll do it if you do it kind of thing. It wasn't with any specific goals in mind other than another coach was going to do it. And I was like, I'll do it with you. And my intent was a month, because I'd actually done carnivore several years ago for about a month and stopped because I dealt with a lot of oxalate dumping, but I had no idea that is what was going on. So this time I came into it with a lot more knowledge about what to expect and why my body was reacting this way. And it started out, like I said, as a 30-month experiment. And here we are 7 months later, still going strong. And what was funny was a month into carnivore, another coach said, I'm going to try dairy free. And I'm like, I'll try that with you. So I have been a dairy-free keto carnivore for 6 months. And what's funny to me is I had no idea that dairy fueled my hunger the way it did.
Oh, yeah.
And it just, heavy cream was like a staple for me because I was thinking that was helping me with my fat and calories. But really all it was doing was driving my hunger. And when I stopped it and it changed, it was like, oh, this is a big deal. Yeah. And my partner in crime, at the end of 30 days went right back to dairy, and here I am. 6 months later. I will admit I have cheese on a very rare occasion, but I have learned heavy cream has to be a no for me.
Yeah.
And really, I think that also explains why I stay carnivore. Is keto for me caused a lot of like mental anxiety, so to speak, where I was always rationalizing, but it's keto at like berries. But then I'd eat the entire container, or I'd buy macadamia nuts and eat a 2-pound container in a week.
Yeah.
And I remember looking at, there's like 60 servings in that.
Yeah.
But I had all this mental space of, but it's keto, it's okay, not worrying about the portion size. But I did all of this rationalizing. These things are okay, they're keto, it's not off plan. And being carnivore lets me draw a really firm line in the sand with what versus what is allowed versus what's beneficial. And so by focusing on removing my binge triggers, I tend to do much better. As far as carnivore and weight loss goes, I wouldn't say that there has been any, but I've lost a whole pant size, which is a big deal for someone like me, where with lipedema, where all my weight is in my legs, that I've gone down a size is pretty darn exciting.
Awesome.
And I definitely feel like the inflammation and the puffiness from the keto foods that I was eating that weren't beneficial is also gone or dissipated. The big thing, though, is perimenopause symptoms. I was having like night sweats, like at least once a week, which if you guys have never had a night sweat, let me tell you, it is the most vile thing ever. I mean, you like basically wake up in a puddle. It's like wetting the bed. It's so gross. And you really have to change your clothes, change the I mean, it's bad, but I have not had not one in the 7 months since I've been carnivore.
That's amazing.
It's a huge deal. And then the other really interesting thing that has changed is, so lipedema, part of it has a lymphatic component. And a lot of women with lipedema have like venous insufficiency and spider veins and varicose veins and things like that. So I have this cluster of spider veins just below my knee on my leg that has almost completely disappeared. What? And then I had a bulging vein on my other leg right below my knee that is gone completely. And that never cleared up with keto. I never even thought carnivore could do that. But in talking with other people, what carnivore is doing is, again, removing further inflammation, which causes things like that, and is allowing your lymphatics and your venous system to repair from the inside out.
Wow, that is fascinating, because my grandmother, I remember, would go and pay to have her legs like stripped, I guess it was called. And she had those types of veins. I'm, knock on wood, haven't had any of that show up for myself. But my mother does. She's got tons of those all over. I remember as a kid seeing those. And my grandmother would go and pay to have her legs, I guess, stripped is like a thing. But I had, and you know, I was always told, I'd ask my mom, like, what is that? And she's like, oh, there's nothing you can do about it. Like, some people, it's just genetics. You just get these. But you're saying, like, you've had 2 places where they've just totally, like, resolved.
One place where it's totally gone, the bulging vein completely gone. And what's funny is I actually have a picture of it, because I took a picture of my toes getting a pedicure, and you can see the bulging vein. And I'm just so glad that somehow I found that photo. And then you can also see the spider veins on the other leg, which they are still there, but they are much, much faded. I mean, think of it, they almost look, because they're the way they're grouped, it looks like a huge bruise. I mean, unless you look closely.
Yeah, I always see that it's on my mom. Did you hurt yourself? You know, a little kid asking questions. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, it's faded a lot.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
things that, again, I never would have thought would happen. And it's not like I'm new to this lifestyle, so to speak, but It was the removal of plants changes happened.
Wow, that's amazing.
It is.
So how, you've been carnivore for like 7 months, you say. How quickly did you start to notice some of the benefits from switching over from keto into carnivore? How long, like a month, 6 weeks? Like, what was your time frame?
I would say probably within the month, things like so again, with lipedema, most women with lipedema carry their weight like waist down. Yeah. And I am the same way. And when I lose weight, I tend to lose weight face first, which is like the place I need to lose it the least. But I noticed that I did have puffiness in my face that was resolved like very quickly by going carnivore. And as far as, you know, keto, even with overeating keto legal foods, I mean, I always felt great, but carnivore just took it to yet this other level of energy and performance at the gym and better sleep and all of these things that I didn't even realize weren't at optimal levels already.
I love that. And what kind of, like, you were eating keto, what kind of plants were like the last ones to go? Did you have a hard time getting rid of any plants?
No, because, it's funny, I've never been a big vegetable fan. And so really it was just like a cold turkey change. So the biggest struggle were the trigger foods. I mean, things like almond flour and macadamia nuts and blueberries.
Yeah.
But as far as like veggies go, I mean, I like very few. I mean, I like, riced cauliflower because it's a great substitute. It keto-fies things that got me in trouble in the first place. I really like Brussels sprouts and like cabbage and those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But I don't really miss them. So it's really not a big deal. And carnivore is incredibly satisfying and satiating. And it's like, it really does help to turn the switch of eating for fuel versus entertainment.
Yes. So it helps with food addiction, really, you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Because the addiction is what keeps those trigger foods in it for me, even though they're keto. So, I mean, I'm way beyond wanting, potato chips or a Reese's cup.
Mm-hmm.
But I still struggle with, I really would like some macadamia nuts. I would really like to eat every one of the blueberries that's in my fridge. Yeah. But I'm carnivore now, so I don't do that. So it's kind of like, it really helps to define. And I don't know why, other than I really am kind of an all or nothing person. And that line just it helps me to say that I don't eat that. I choose not to have that.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we went to Ocella together back in May. And so we got to hang out. We shared a cabin, just talked a ton. And one of the things I loved that you kind of told me is your experience as a keto coach, that, you encourage people to keep it really simple and to stop looking for recipes and to stop looking for different, I was like, oh, wow, kind of like mind blown, because that's another way that people, I think, can perpetuate that food addiction is like, how many different recipes can I do and what can I add? And like just the food obsession. And yeah.
I totally think so. I think that I have a number of keto cookbooks, but I don't know if you're like me, but even when I was fully keto, there were always ingredients in those recipes that I don't like. Yeah. And so I always have used recipes more as a springboard than a list of rules. And there are a lot of people who aren't like that, who, if there's an ingredient in here I don't like, they're just not going to make it. They're not going to make it without that ingredient. Right. So I can still look at a recipe and think, okay, how can I make this carnivore? Would it make any difference if it doesn't have X in it? And a lot of times it really doesn't. It still tastes really good. You can make it work for you. But I do think a lot of people, they get stuck on, I need a recipe. And what I tell my clients is, grill a burger, grill your steak, fry a pork chop, bacon roasted chicken. I mean, you need stuff where your only recipe is the time and temperature you need to cook it.
Exactly. That's the simplicity, the beauty of carnivores. It's like, I'm going to throw this meat on the grill. I'm going to put the meat in the pan. Then I'm going to eat it. And then I'm just going to go on with my day. And I'm not going to be worrying and planning and thinking about what's the next thing I'm going to cook. It's like you eat, your body is satisfied. And it takes that kind of like food addiction edge that I think a lot of people live with and maybe don't even know that they're doing it. I think they're not even aware that it's going on. And I'm sure you see that a lot as a coach, like people coming and like, just everything is all about the next meal, the next recipe, and like, how can I sneak this in and sneak that in and not feel deprived? And
right. Well, that whole idea of deprivation or needing variety, I think, is definitely the fuel for their addiction, because you don't need that. I mean, you seriously don't. You can do incredibly simple things and the same thing over and over and over again. And if you're looking for more, I think that's kind of where it becomes, what is it exactly you're looking for? And one of the things I like to think about, you know, you have two buckets. You have a bucket that's fuel and you have a bucket that's like fun.
Right.
And so you've got, you know, emotions and things like that you're trying to deal with. You are never going to fill the fun bucket with fuel, and the fuel bucket is never going to be filled with fun. They don't work. They don't cross-pollinate. You think about the Ghostbusters, don't cross the streams. You know?
Yeah.
So they don't work. You can't do that. And I think when you realize that, when you are looking for the fun and the mouth party and the variety, it's like, really, what is it that you want? Because it's not food, it's something else. And and that kind of introspection is not comfortable.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, when we were talking, it was like, for a lot of people, they think that the food part of things is the hard part, you know. And it's not necessarily the food that is the hard part. It's like the rest of your life. But we're obsessing on the food and we're thinking on the food because it's a distraction from having to deal with the rest of your life, you know?
Right. Well, I tell that to my coaching clients too, that, you know, really the food part of keto, we can do that in 15 or 20 minutes and really be done.
Yeah.
But the coaching is more about the brain. It is more about, you know, what's going on in your life this week? You know, what happened at work? What are you doing with your friends? What's going on with your family? Because all of those things impact the choices you make and the rationalizations that you make.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, for you, I'm sure it's been an evolution to get to where you are, you know, having lost 200 pounds and being keto for all these years. And tell me a little bit about that evolution for you, like just how you've gotten to where you are now.
Well, it's funny. I had a client one time tell me that I couldn't relate to her because I didn't cheat. And it almost made me laugh because I'm like, oh my goodness, I am the queen of cheating. I am the queen of failure. I am the queen of self-sabotage. So I did my very first diet when I was 10 years old. I will be 50 this summer. So I had 40 some odd years of dieting history and failing. And I know what it's like to do that. I know how that works. I know the rationalization. I know that it's just this once. It's just this bite. Right. It's vacation. It's my birthday. It's the holidays. I'm going to a party. I know all of those things. And one of the things that I think keto allowed me to do is it allowed me to actually see the self-sabotage versus thinking it was normal.
Yeah.
And I think that's really been the evolution. And I think the reason I could see it was because I wasn't hungry.
Wow. That's so good. And that's such great information, you know, and just learning. And yeah, I think a lot of people see someone like you who has had a lot of weight loss success and is doing as well as you're doing. And you're like, I'm firm. I don't cheat. I finally have gotten to that place with myself where I'm a happier person. My life is a better place if I'm not trying to do cheat meals and cheat days. And it's like a headache. I don't want to have it. But it has taken me, you know, I'm 40 and it's taken me this long to get to that place because, you know, and somebody was on my Instagram, I just noticed like this morning, and they were kind of arguing back and forth of like, well, that's just no way to live if you can't have pizza every now and then, and you can't have ice cream every now and then. That you're just going to set yourself up to fail if you say you can't have those foods. And it's like, yeah, I've tried that before. And it's a quick way to fail. And I think one of the things that you said when we were talking one time is that I think you had decided you were doing really well at one point and you decided you were going to have like a cheat meal or a cheat day or whatever. And then it was like 5 years.
Yes.
Before you could recover.
That is the cheat. Yeah, so that was a cruise, and I had been on Atkins for a while and had lost like 70 something pounds. I was doing great, even with occasional cheating in there. But I decided I was going to go off for that whole week because it was a cruise, and then I would get on right as soon as we walked off the ship. And it did. It took me 5 years because when we got off the ship, it was almost Memorial Day. So there was a big cookout. And then, I don't know what happened in June. And then in July was my birthday. And then, back to school stresses. And then Halloween. And then Thanksgiving. And then Christmas. And then we started all over again. And it's this constant rationalization, or this bizarre notion we have that Monday or the 1st is the best time to start something new versus the next meal. Right. So if you mess up at breakfast, you can start over at lunch.
Yes, exactly. That's so powerful. And I always think about that. It's like, you just don't know how difficult it's going to be to recover from this. So why even bother with it,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it is big. And starting over is always harder than the last time.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where I am right now, that, if I were to have some of the Christmas candy that's still on my living room table that my daughters and my mom enjoy, that would just be the beginning of the end for me, because it would never stop there. And if you're an addict, you know that, it's 1 is too many and 10 is never enough. Never. You're never going to be satisfied because you're trying to fill the fun bucket with food.
Exactly. That's such valuable information, and there are people out there who can, have a cheat meal, go back and they're fine. But, I think you and I relate to not being those people.
Right.
That's not
it's like, I think when you've got addiction, you're either a moderator or an abstainer.
Yeah.
And if you are a moderator, you can do things in moderation. And if you are an abstainer, you will never be a moderator, no matter how hard you try. It's just, you're not going to be able to do that. And I think moderators don't get abstainers, and abstainers have a hard time understanding how. I think my dad was truly a moderator, and he always did our grocery shopping. He did the cooking and everything for the family, and he would go to the grocery and get some flavor of ice cream he really liked. The rest of us, we did not like it that much, but it was still ice cream.
Right.
He would go in and get his little pint with a spoon straight out of the pint, take a mouthful and put it back. And then a month, 6 weeks later, he'd go to get another spoonful, and he could never understand why that ice cream was gone.
Oh my God. Yeah, that sounds like my husband. He will go to Quick Trip and buy a pack of M&Ms, take out like 4, throw the rest of the pack of the way, and just eat the 4 M&Ms. Like, who does that? That's like he will walk away from desserts. He'll just have a bite and throw it out, or just get, put it in. Yeah. And he doesn't understand me. And the thing is that I also want to mention about being an abstainer is that it's tricky, because it doesn't happen every time. Like, you can sometimes get away with it if that's like a thing, like you could have, sometimes I have in my past had the cheat meal or the cheat day and gotten right back on track and been fine. But at some point, I know that if that's a behavior I continue, the door will be open and it will be like, okay, I'm going to do this again and again. And it could be another 5 years before I can get back and have that great week. So it's tricky. And then what your addiction tells you is just like, oh yeah, but remember that time you did that and it was okay. Even though it might have been 15 freaking years ago. Right. Your addiction's hanging on to the time where you had a successful, quote unquote successful cheat. So it's tricky. And it's tricky. It's out, it's always trying to mess with your head. So
right. And I think sometimes there are people who need to be abstainers who think they're moderators. So I had somebody tell me once that they were a moderator, that they could go in and have 1 Oreo and be totally satisfied with that. The problem is she had an Oreo every day. And I said a moderator would be somebody who would have 1 or 2 Oreos, but the next time they want to go get one, they're stale because they've forgotten about them.
Exactly.
That's a moderator.
Yeah.
She is not a moderator. She needs 1 every day.
Right. Not at all. Not at all.
Even if it's just 1, you are still not a moderator. Again, if you go back for it and it's either missing because somebody else ate it or it's now stale, you're a moderator.
Right. So I want to talk a little more about lipedema, because that is, again, one of those things that I had never heard of until I connected with you. And like you kind of explained to me, a lot of women have it, don't know they have it. So talk about that a little bit for me, your experience with it, how someone would know if they have it, and what they could do about it, what a good treatment would be for that.
So lipedema is not diagnosed by any blood test or anything like that. It is a visual or a palpitation type diagnosis. It's probably one of the few diseases ever you can self-diagnose, mostly because it is visual and because it is a rare doctor that knows about it or doesn't confuse it with lymphedema, which is completely different.
My mom has that.
So lipedema is an adipose tissue disorder. So it is a diseased fat cells. It is a fat cell that doesn't function normally. And they tend to be rock hard fat. And the thought is they cannot be lost by diet or exercise. So what it looks like visually is it typically shows from the waist down, and some women, you can see it from, hips to ankles, some just from hip to knee, some just pretty much saddlebag and hip. Women with lipedema tend to be much smaller through their torso. They are not proportionate. Like, for example, someone might be like a size 8 shirt, but a size 16 bottom. So there's not that. There are a lot of women, myself included, who also have it in their upper arms. But when you look at them, their shoulders are narrow. You can usually see their collarbones. If you only saw like a face picture of them, you might never guess in a million years that woman could weigh 400 pounds. The legs themselves, if you've got full leg, at the knee, they have lipedema's a hallmark is what's called a knee cliff, where fat hangs over the knee, where it's almost like you can't see that there's a knee there. There's usually a fat pad under the knee, almost like towards the inside of the leg, which throws off your gait, which throws off your mobility, which is, as it progresses, that is something that can be lost. If you have it all the way to ankles, a lot of women with lipedema, myself included, have what's called an ankle cuff, where it looks like you put a rubber band around your ankle, but it does not go into the foot. I also have wrist cuffs, so there's like it's kind of hard to see here, but it's like a ring around the wrist, and it doesn't go into the hands. You can, when you palpitate, when you feel the fat under the skin, it feels like frozen peas, gravel, sand, rice, or some of the many, metaphors for what it feels like. Women with lipedema also tend to bruise very easily for unknown reasons. Lipedema is also called the painful fat syndrome, where it really hurts to even have a cat walk across your legs, or to get a massage. Or when you get a pedicure, you might be like, don't touch my shins because it hurts too much. Wow. And some women have trouble just having a blanket on them because of the pressure on their legs. But it is a progressive disease. And what I have found is that keto stops it in its tracks, because you are reducing insulin, which negatively impacts the fat cells and your lymphatic system. And keto carnivore can take it a step further, and not only stopping the progression, but you can also see regression of the disease.
Wow, that's amazing. So thank God for finding these ways of eating that have provided you with, I hope, some relief, it sounds like.
Well, not only that, but hope. I think that I'm so glad I didn't know about lipedema prior to keto, because I really think if I knew about lipedema a long time ago, I would have just taken diet and exercise doesn't work as, well, then this is the way I was meant to be. And I think I would have used it almost to justify the binge behaviors that I had. And what I'm so thankful for and hopeful for with keto is that I have proven you can impact this with diet and exercise, that you
Yeah.
can stop the progression of things. Do I still have lipedema? Absolutely. I mean, I still have the shape, I have everything, but I feel like I am keeping it from getting any worse. And
Yeah.
if anything, it's gotten better.
That's awesome. And I definitely will put below this video, for anyone watching, resources. I'm going to get those from you,
Great.
websites and, helpful resources, obviously ways people can get a hold of you, and you do the coaching as well. So if anyone is
Right.
struggling and wants to talk with you, then that could be also really, really helpful as well.
We have found too that something that often goes hand in hand with lipedema is lymphedema, that lymphedema can be impacted by obesity, but both can be helped by keto, whether you've got lymphedema due to cancer or other reasons, that it is one of the things that makes your lymphatic system healthier. And keto and carnivore are great tools to use to keep these things at under control. And it's amazing what they can do. And so myself, along with another coach who also has lipedema and lymphedema, and she's a clinical nutritionist, we run 8-week programs helping women with these two conditions or one or the other, because you need to really tighten things up when you are dealing with a health condition in order to get some traction with it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that's such a great resource for anybody watching who might be struggling. I'm definitely going to put all those links in there so they can follow up with you guys. Yeah. So just to jump around a little bit, let's tell everyone kind of like a typical day of eating for you. That's always a really popular question. People always want to know, what are you eating?
Well, it's funny because I'm going to tell you what I do, and I'm also going to tell you don't do what I do. So because being a former binge eater, I can do volume. And when I do tend to do one meal a day because I can do a lot in one sitting, but I don't tend to need more than that. For a lot of people, if they're only doing one meal in a day, they tend to be low calorie, which causes a host of other issues. So there's my caveat in what I do. So, I mean, I'm usually going to have some sort of protein that's massively loaded with fat. So that tends to be my meal for the day.
Yeah.
So I think one day this week I had like a leftover flank steak and I just poured a bunch of ghee on top of it. The other day I had ground pork, which I just love. I don't like ground beef for some reason. So I did ground pork, and then I did like 3 egg yolks over the top of it. I find egg yolks give you that mouthfeel of cheese and that creaminess of cream without either of them.
Definitely.
So I did, a couple of egg yolks over some ground pork with a ton of salt. Today I'm going to have chicken wings in my air fryer later today, which I'll usually, my little break from dairy is I'll sprinkle them with a little bit of Parmesan cheese and ghee and a lot of salt. So it's, a wide variety of things. But yeah, usually, like I said, it's protein with a lot of fat.
Nice. So tell me a little bit about your exercise routine, how you navigate through that.
So with keto, about 6 months in, I finally, I guess, found this bizarre desire to work out, which to me was very strange because my entire life up to that point was doing anything I could to avoid exercise and sweating. I mean, even in high school, I didn't dress out half the time. I only dressed out enough so that I'd pass the class. But in my head, exercise for women meant aerobics. It meant like dancing and things like that. And I am probably the most uncoordinated person ever. And I have zero sense of rhythm, so much so I can't even clap in time to music. It does not work for me. So when I joined the gym, I was like, I want to do weights and I don't want to do anything else. And don't talk to me about diet. So they were like, okay. And so I had a trainer for a year, and it was really the best thing I ever did because I learned how to do things, But she was also fantastic in that she could tell when to push and she could tell when I'd had enough. She also was great because at 330 pounds, there's a lot of things I just couldn't do. I mean, we didn't even do core work on the floor for another 6 months. Wow. Because while I could get down there, getting back up would have been almost impossible.
Yeah.
So it was just fantastic. And so now, I mean, I do heavyweight training 4 times a week, and it is always, it's funny because it's like I never really want to go to the gym, but I've never regret going.
Yeah, I get that. So totally get that.
It's great. Great, and it's so wonderful to feel strong.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I love it.
Yes.
That's wonderful. Well, I guess the last question I have really is, if there's somebody out there who is struggling, you know, maybe they are close to your age, feel like maybe they have lipedema, they're struggling with food, eating issues, anything at all, just advice that you would give to that person. What would you say to that person?
I think that it's so important to have hope and to know that you can do this, that I am not special. I don't have more willpower than you. There's nothing about me that makes me any different from you. And I think the key is the mind, and to know that you are worthy of success, that you deserve success, you deserve health, and you deserve to be happy. And when you can come to terms with that, you can make the steps that you need to take in order to make all those things happen.
I love that. And of course, you know, I said last question, but now I have to ask you, what's your secret to mindset? You know, because you have an awesome mindset and positive, and like, what are your tools to get to that place to have that mindset on a daily basis?
I think self-care is essential. I think that whether you journal or you just think about things, because honestly, the thinking about it is where your magic happens. Whether you're writing it down or not is secondary. But I think you have to love you, and it is okay to love you where you are. Yeah. Because nothing comes from hate. You are never going to get a positive outcome from hating yourself. Yeah. You are never going to get a positive outcome from hating your body or the way that you look, or hating what your doctor told you, or hating what somebody else said to you that was negative. None of those things are going to inspire you to make change. You have to love you where, you know, who you are and where you are. And I think that is just something that came with time to know, you know what? I deserve to be happy, and I deserve to be healthy.
I love it. That's wonderful. Well, thank you. And, you know, like I said, I'm going to put links below, resources for lipedema, how people can get in touch with you if they're interested in coaching, and your handle on Instagram. So thanks for spending some time with me today. I know this is going to help a lot of people.
Well, thank you for asking me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right, I'm going to sign us off. Thanks, Katrina.
Bye, everyone.